I don't think that'll ever get old. I'm in your ear. Yeah, dope T-shirt, man.
Thank you, man.
Repping Philly today.
Today I am, yeah. I can't be out on these streets like I usually am, so here we are.
You met Schoolie D?
Oh, yeah. I've hung out with him, yeah, a couple times.
Oh wow. You said, I mean, you're too young to remember when the song dropped, but like PSK, what did it mean to you?
I mean, Schoolie D is my favorite Philly rapper, and it goes far beyond that song. I just love his energy. I love his, say anything, censorship be damned. I love the fact that he did his own artwork and production. But yeah, PSK, honestly, I love the beat even more than the rhymes, which, either way, it's props to Schoolie.
I mean, the beat was crazy. I mean, just like it was just so thunderous. That 808 was crazy, man. I miss that sound in hip hop actually. You know, the trap drums like it was a return to that kind of like reverberating bass, but man, the 808s back in the like 80s and 90s is just like I don't know, it was trunk rattling. Loved it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, episode 3. What's the headline? I'm gonna leave that all in there. I thought that was some dope hip hop stuff, man. Big Pain on the Philly grind, you know. No, man, I was saying I don't know that Philly rap gets its props because everyone thinks about it starting in the East Coast and like really starting to kind of pop on the West Coast in the late '80s with Cube and Easy and all those guys. But Philly was doing its thing. I mean, early, like 80, 83 or so was Jazzy Jeff, Fresh Prince, and you had Schoolie. You had like a really distinct Philly sound.
Yeah, 84, 85, it really burst in Philly. And Jazzy Jeff's first record was not with Will. It was with somebody else whose name escapes me at this exact moment that he did scratches on. But yeah, I mean, Steady B, Cool C, Tough Crew, Three Times Dope, that whole hilltop movement. Philly's crazy. And it was an early city in the graffiti movement with a writer named Cornbread, who was up and down the East Coast, but based in Philly. So yeah, I wish Philly gets more props, but it's great. I know we'll be talking about Black Thought later today, and that's just an extension of Philly kind of coming for its crown.
At what point did you start to go back and explore that catalog? I'm assuming you didn't start, with that as your rap foundation. When,
You mean as
like,
far as Philly?
yeah, when did you go back? Like, at what point as a rap fan did you start to go back and explore your own city's music?
So yeah, I mean, I moved to Philly in 2002, so that was right as Freeway was marching towards his debut album. The Roots had just put out Phrenology the summer I moved here, which was an amazing album. I was a big fan of it. State Property, all of that. But it was funny with Schoolie D, his CD, his original, the yellow cover of the Schoolie D album was always worth $100. The CD back before you could burn everything. So I was a digger, and I always dug CDs that I could flip or records to support my habit. So there were certain CDs out there that always brought bigger money. Main Source, Breaking Atoms is one, OC Word Life, like the whole Wild Pitch catalog. But Schoolie was always way more money. So I would grab it, and it was funny. I grabbed it, and I liked it so much I couldn't sell it,
Mm.
that first album. And I was like, man, so that I kind of found Schoolie by happenstance when I was, you know, 13, 14, 15 years old. And that just sent me down a rabbit hole of who was he working with? What are the other, contemporaries like? And I always love Jeff and Will, like Brand New Funk, that sort of stuff.
And Brandon Funk still goes hard, man.
Oh,
Wow.
incredible.
Speaking of Philly, man, Black Thought. Did you get to check out Sway had bedroom bars on IG?
I did, yeah. Sway and his daughter with Black Thought. That was a dope little segment.
Yeah, what'd you think of the freestyle itself, first of all?
Okay, so no, I didn't. Oh yeah, at the end of the video, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I liked it. I don't. I was playing the interview while I was doing other things, and I'm just always astounded. I probably, like many of us, take Black Thought for granted. Like, I'm just listening to this freestyle, but he did that incredible one at Rhapsody's show earlier this year. Obviously he's just been on a run. But yeah, I mean, Black Thought is like the illest improvisational MC I think there is. What about
Yeah,
you?
and it's so heavy, man. Like I feel like I got to go back and listen to that one with like a dictionary or like
Hmm.
go back and start Googling stuff because he's dropping, names and references that I don't even know. So Yeah, it's always crazy to see how he can do it just so effortlessly, or make it seem effortless. You know.
You're absolutely right. I mean, over the years of just transcribing his freestyles, there will be terms and references that I don't understand, and then you go and do the research just because I'm that nerdy, and I'll be astounded. I mean, I keep using that word, but it's the best word for it. Black Thought. I mean, he's not just making the rhyme; he's filling it with substance and research and reference points, and it's just wow.
Yeah. So there was a part. I'm gonna show this to you. There was a part where Jay is actually Sway asks him um, if he ever worked with Jay-Z, and Thought is like, no. Uh, oh man, I was going to share this, but yeah. So I was going to share this. There's a clip where Sway starts talking about um, seeing him and Black Thought, or seeing Jay work with the Roots during the MTV Unplugged, and he asks if Thought ever worked with Jay. And Thought says that the reason why he let Jay-Z rock with the Roots that time is because it was supposed to be a collaboration with Jay. I think he said Eminem and Nas, and this question is because as to whether that was um, the Unplugged or some other time, because obviously Jay and Nas were not on the best of terms when that Unplugged dropped. I think it was like 2002, something like that.
Yeah.
But he says it didn't happen, and he said he wouldn't have let Jay rock had it not happened. And then he also talked about how Jay has been supportive and signed him and everything, but just never gotten on a record. And it made me think, Jay has often challenged himself, getting on records with the MCs who are at their pinnacles. He was on a record with Drake, with young J. Cole, young Kendrick, obviously it goes on and on. And now Jay Electronica. And he never ever lets anybody get him, right? Like, in fact, Eminem, there's that debate. But like Kendrick, a lot of people thought he got Kendrick, like, he's a competitor. But I'm wondering if Black Thought is one of those cats where it's like, yo, I don't need it. I don't need it. You think that was intentional, or you think it's just happenstance they haven't rhymed together?
I think it's intentional. So we talk about Nas, I don't think either of the Jay-Z and Nas collaborations, the first two, Black Republicans and Success, measured up to the hype. And I think on both times, Jay just high and above stole the show. And so, yeah, I mean, I do think Jay doesn't want to get quote unquote murdered on his own shit, and there, will forever be the debate about Renegade. More than that, though, I think Jay, around that time, around 2001, the Blueprint positioned himself a cut above just about everybody. He'll still reach back and work with people, but to do that cipher kind of seems against the campaign that Jay had been making throughout the 2000s of, becoming this like Prince, Michael Jackson, Ivory Tower artist or Dr. Dre that only appears when he needs to appear. Robbed hip hop of an incredible moment, though, whether Nas was part of it or not.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been insane. Yeah, I mean, props to like Benny the Butcher, because pretty young in his career. Like, I mean, he got on a track with Thought and like held his own. And a lot of times when you see stuff like that, you see the rappers adapting or kind of gravitating toward the other person's style. Mm-hmm. But Benny was just like straight Benny on that track,
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I'm thinking too, just back at your question, I mean, Jay worked with Wayne in that 2006, 2000 and whatever, 2007, 2008 run. He wasn't afraid of that, but I know last year, earlier this year too, when Royce has been doing his press campaign, people keep asking him, if that collaboration will ever happen. And Rock Nation got behind the Black Savages record. You and I even had a drink bet on whether there would be a remix of Jay on it, which I thought happened. I owe you a drink for that when quarantine ends. But yeah, I mean, Jay has been careful both with Tariq and Royce and a few other MCs. I do think we'll see him with Benny not too long from now, at least, Benny or Conway.
That would be incredible. Yeah, I mean, Benny got with Royce too. Like, I mean, he's fearless. I dig that.
Yeah.
Yeah, a Jay-Z Griselda collaboration would just be insane. It would be game over. I'm surprised he hasn't done it by now.
Yeah, and it's got to be. I really wanted to see either with Derringer or Alchemist production, not to call the plays in advance, but I like to see Jay step into their world. Because I know Griselda, to their credit, they've been adapting and kind of stepping into other artists' realms. I want Jay to step into theirs, sort of like he did with Pusha on Drug Dealers Anonymous.
Yeah, and Raekwon, although that sounded different. That was a bit more soulful. The Raekwon Griselda collabo. Yeah, it
true.
didn't have
That's
that
true.
like. I'm wondering if they have it in the tuck. But speaking of Griselda, so and Alchemist, Conway and Alchemist dropped that joint project this past week. What did you think of it?
I really liked it. I mean, Alchemist is so prolific, and he's been very quietly, producing a lot of stuff for, West Side Gun, Benny, Conway. And Alchemist puts out projects like this all the time, but I feel like in the midst of what's been going on, there've been really cool singles. There was obviously Childish Gambino, but for this side of rap, for the hardcore heads, so to speak, there hasn't been a release of this profile. There's a lot of dope stuff in the underground, and this just satisfied. And I mentioned it last week when we spoke, but the two songs that I keep coming back to is the joint Shoot Sideways with Schoolboy Q. Really like that, because that's, again, like, you have Al, who's been doing this great stuff with Griselda in recent years, but also been, one of the, probably my favorite producer for Schoolboy Q, and merging those worlds. And then you have They Shot Sonny with Core Mega, which is great because, Mega was one of the first people Alchemist worked with way back in the day. And he finishes that verse. Like, I actually have played that 3 times today, and it's not even lunchtime yet.
Yeah, you mentioned that Alka and Schoolboy Q. I think they need to do a whole album, man.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they have a special kind of chemistry. It's like almost like the Evidence and Alchemist chemistry. Yeah, I'm a huge Al fan and massive Conway fan too. I think I've always kind of like gravitated more towards projects than you have in the past. So surprising to me that, because like we split on this one, it wasn't my favorite project. And which maybe I had different expectations of the sound, because I do love them both so much individually, but I don't know, something, it didn't connect for me. The rhymes and the beats didn't connect for me in the same way. I got to go back and listen to it a couple times, because both of them have dense music. But yeah, it didn't strike me right off the bat. I didn't have that feeling I did, when I hear Alk and Evidence track, or Q, or whoever. But like, who are some of your favorite, like, Alk? What are some of your favorite Alk tracks? I mean, he's just so underrated.
Yeah, I mean, to me, one of the ultimate, like, hip hop bangers, and I don't ever use that word, but to me it is an absolute banger, is Keep It Thorough with Prodigy. Like, and that's Alchemist, because literally he just sliced out a part of the sample that, had been lurking for all of these years and made it incredible. So there's that. There's We Gonna Make It for Jadakiss, and originally Razkaz. And I don't want to get hung up either, because I think that songs like that had the benefit of videos and heavy radio play. In recent years, Alchemist has been doing this incredible stuff in the underground. I mean, what he did 2 years ago with Evidence on the Whether or Not album was amazing. Track like Powder Cocaine. And then, Alchemist made this project a few years ago called Russian Roulette, which I think is all Russian samples, and the production on that is, that album is one you can just put on and lean back, and there's no disappointments. What about you?
So, well, man, it's so hard. Like, his stuff with Brasscast is amazing. Like, I just think he had, one of the favorite things I've ever seen. Like, I run this back. I probably watched this video 40 times. Is a freestyle session he had with King Los. It's just
Hmm.
him and Los and like two other people in the studio, and Alka's got this track. It's just the chords. It's no beat or anything. Just keep letting it run back, and Los is freestyling the entire time,
Yeah.
and like it just gets deeper and deeper and deeper. Like it's just, I love that, man. I watch that link probably like once every month or so. It's
I have
amazing.
to. I don't think I've ever experienced that. I'll have to look for it.
Yeah, yeah. I think I sent it to you back in the day.
Okay.
But yeah, it's crazy. So, but you know, all these beat battles going on now. And someone said that Alchemist and Madlib needed to do a beat battle. And Alk said he would never do it because Madlib would destroy him. I mean, what do you think? What do you think about that?
I think, and I love Alchemist's whole persona and aesthetic. I mean, he's truly a funny guy. As far as that battle, I don't know that it's that clear cut. You know, I mean, I think Madlib is phenomenal, um, but so is Al, and I think that he was just giving respect to his partner. Yo, I've missed a lot of the battles of the last 10 days that everyone has been talking about. That one is 100% worth my time. If that battle were to happen, I'm there. I don't know for sure who would win, but I think it would be a lot tighter than Alchemist made it seem when I think it was Elliot Wilson that proposed the idea to him.
Mm, yeah, I think so too, man. I think that would be a really epic one. You know, I think Pete and Primo have done it a lot. They're kind of like almost that next generation after Pete and Primo of Titans. You know,
Yeah.
and um, they both use similar techniques but completely differently. So you know, both are really heavy on soul samples and like really like deep kind of chops, but the output sounds completely different.
Yeah, I mean, you know, they really do have overlapping histories too, because Madlib, and people tend to forget this, Madlib kind of came out of the Alcoholics.
Hmm.
You know, he was
Yeah.
producing on those first two albums, and the Loot Pack appeared. You know, some of the stuff, but he was like E Swift's protege. And meanwhile, you have Al, who was DJ Muggs' protege first, I believe. Q and later on, you know, obviously Havoc with Mobb Deep, and they kind of have that style, and then step out into their own, and they have so many different, you know, layers. Both have like a smoked out sound, very dusty grooves. But you know, you look at some of the stuff that Madlib has done over the years, like Al, they can make a single very easily, you know, as well.
Yeah, I mean I would love to see them do a joint album. I mean
There's that would be nuts. Yeah.
yeah.
There's this DVD, and I think, you know, I don't encourage, it's worth owning, but I think a lot of the stuff is on YouTube. It came out 15 years ago, and it's called Sound Clash, and it's these three LA battles at the Root Down, and Madlib battles Cut Chemist from Jurassic 5, who is another slept on, very similar producer, and it's worth watching. And in that same battle, Will I Am kind of comes back to this underground party after he had found all this success with Black Eyed Peas, and he battles Thes One from People Under the Stairs.
Hmm.
And then there's a third battle, and I might have, it's Exile, you know, who's worked with Blue and Fashawn, and it's escaping me who he battles. I might have that a little bit jumbled up, but if you've been enjoying the climate of battles, go on YouTube and watch this stuff, because especially the Cut Chemist Madlib one is just, it is great entertainment.
Where, you know, I think my favorite Alchemist track, or at least one of them, is The Realist with, you know,
Yeah.
Cool G rapping
Boom,
Mobb
boom,
Deep. I
boom,
mean,
boom.
yeah, it just is so like, I don't know, man. Like it sounds so spooky. Like he's got very cinematic and dark chords, you know. I love
Yeah.
it.
And that one was dope because on the Mobb Deep album, I mean, he did a few of those joints. That was on Murder Music, I believe, and they sounded so good right beside what, you know, Havoc and Mobb Deep were doing themselves.
Yeah, did you catch any of the Manny Fresh and Scott Storch beat battle?
I missed it, much to my chagrin. Tell me about it.
Yeah, it was crazy, man. I didn't see the battle itself. I saw a recap, but like you forget like how many joints Manny Fresh has got. Like, you know,
Yeah,
I was obviously there's the No Limit stuff in that era, but I forget like the Ti joints
yeah,
and you know he's really just been around and he's still doing stuff with Wayne now. But Scott Storch, you know, it was a little bit unfair. They should have established the rules a bit differently because Scott Storch dropped stuff like Cry Me a River and
Okay.
The Watcher and things like that, you know, and um, yeah, it's I don't know, it's a slippery slope there to say that those are Scott Storch beats when you know it's co-production, he's playing keys, but you obviously got Timbaland, you got Dr. Dre.
Yeah.
You know, there were a few joints like that where it's like, huh, you know, like
That's interesting too,
yeah,
because Manny is one. I think Manny deserves the term super producer all day long. I think Manny is one person that I don't know if he has assistants. You know, I mean,
yeah,
I'm sure there's mixers and engineers and you know stuff like that, but there, you know, Scott is tied into all of these people. You know, Dre has been tied in, Timberland with Manny, and I know that you know, unfortunately, New Orleans rap bounce music doesn't have the media and culture around it to really write about the stuff to the way that like New York and LA does. But Manny, yeah, he deserves that. There should have been ground rules, and that's one of the things. But all right, I'm gonna put you. Who do you think won?
definitely Scott Storch. I mean, with so okay, you take out the co-productions, and like it's really probably about a tie, you
Yeah.
know. But with the co-productions, like Scott Storch, I mean, yeah, it was gruesome by the end. He was throwing some haymakers.
Manny, we were talking about these, you know, the D Nice and everyone else doing these live DJ, you know, on IG and Periscope and stuff. Manny, I didn't mention him last week, but throughout the month of March, I watched some of what Manny was doing, and those were, man, if you needed high energy or to feel like you were, you know, out and about somewhere, his DJ sets were really, really good, and he was doing them in a venue, which was cool. Like he was the only one there, but something about Manny Fresh just being out and about, you need that to enhance the music.
Yeah, man, he's had a real resurgence as of late too. You know, with the I think it started with the Yassine Bey stuff. Like that was such an odd and unexpected pairing, but
Yeah.
still, it was dope. It had that bounce to it, you know. And Drake is bringing back that bounce sound too. So maybe you know it's kind of cyclical as well.
So you mentioned Drake. Drake dropped, you know, the first what really feels like quarantine music video. You
Uh,
caught a lot of stuff in that video. What was your reaction to all that?
it was crazy, man. First of all, his house is ridiculous. I mean, like
Yeah.
the indoor pool and the outdoor pool. You could see the room where he was sitting during the Rap Radar interview. You know, it was like really a full tour of his house.
Yeah.
But um, a few interesting things. So he had a moment when he went to a room and he had a lot of like posters on the wall, like frame pictures. First of all, he had his own. His own album cover, which was like that's a little I don't know, it's always strange to me when people have portraits of themselves hanging up, you know,
Yeah.
like especially like in a bedroom or something. But there was that, and then there was a framed picture of Snoop, like 1994, 95 Snoop. And then Tupac and Prince, which was interesting. And then he had one of Puff.
Hmm.
And given their history, with Puffy, supposedly like them having a physical altercation, it's interesting to me that he would have that on his wall. But what do you think about that?
Yeah, I'm still warming up to the song itself, and you
Mhm.
and I over the years, you know, transparently speaking, I think we gravitate towards different stuff Drake makes. I think that you're probably a lot bigger of a fan than I am. But that being said, Drake has, you know, five or so songs that I just love and play all the time. It was probably the best video I've seen so far in 2020, and for all the reasons you just said. And man, yeah, I mean on the Puffy thing, Drake he knows how to get people talking. You know, he knows how to. It's almost like the J. Cole Middle Child video, which had all of this amazing symbolism, and then Drake makes it more literal and more interesting. And he's almost like a politician that way, of like every move is calculated.
And he had the Kobe jerseys early, which is cool. You mentioned quarantine though, like so. What made it a quarantine video for you?
The opening, I mean, the empty streets. Obviously, Drake is wearing a mask, which is
Mhm.
interesting to me. I mean, you have maybe the biggest music superstar in the world right now wearing a mask in a video, and the president of the United States saying that he's not going to wear one. I mean, I know
Mm.
neither you nor I right now are wearing masks, but we're both, you know, in our respective residences. But yeah, I mean, it'll, you know, 20 years from now, we will look back at that video and remember what we were doing in a different way than that statement applies to anything else.
Yeah, man, and it wasn't just commentary on that. First of all, he did the dance clearly because that's a social, a viral like sensation, and he's
Yeah.
now started dances like 2 or 3 years in a row. And then also like just the being so calculated about it being 15 seconds for TikTok
Yep.
and working with Tusi. Like, I mean, he's like the Madonna of this era. Madonna used to be able to spot a trend that was bubbling and get on it right before it turned mainstream and become the person who made it seem mainstream. And Drake has been great at doing that as well. Yeah, I mean, he did it with Hotline Bling, where that was designed to create memes, and he ran the internet with that, and this has already got 10 million views in 2 days.
Yeah.
He's a sensation.
Absolutely. That being said, I mean, this is not the first music Drake's put out in 2020. You know, there are a couple Lucy's before. You starting to smell an album in the air, or you think he's
Oh
just
yeah,
gonna have fun with singles?
yeah, no, yeah. I was surprised that the album didn't. I thought he was going to drop an album on Christmas because that interview came out. It was like an hour and a half long, or was it no, 2.5 hours, something like
Yeah, it
that.
was long, and yeah, Christmas Eve he put out the song, and then the interview on Christmas Day.
Yeah, so
I think.
I thought he was going to drop it like that day or that Friday. Yeah, because Christmas was like maybe on Friday, so Wednesday, I think. But I'm surprised it's taken this long to come out. But yeah, I think summertime is usually his now, so he'll probably drop it in June.
So, you know, you mentioned the Kobe jersey in the video. What's your reaction to the Hall of Fame news?
Yeah, man. I mean, everyone knew that was coming, but it's just so I don't know, man. There were so many different things happening, so much swirl on Kobe at the same time. The LeBron thing, surpassing him in points. This is about to be his year in the Hall of Fame. Like, working with his daughter. Like, I think that's just why another reason why it was just so hard because. He had so many things to look forward to, and just so robbed of it. But how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I have what you said is exactly how I feel, and I know that you've watched a lot more NBA over the years than I have. Not to say that I haven't, but yeah, it was just kind of one of those things that make you go, you know, and yeah.
Yeah, I wonder who's going to get in and speak on his behalf now. Maybe it'll be a few people. Maybe it'll be Vanessa and like a teammate or something.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Michael Jordan, what he said, you know, at the you know, public funeral, was amazing, and I don't know that anything more could be said from him on that.
Yeah. Going back to the COVID thing for a second. Have you been wearing a mask outside?
Uh, no, but I got one yesterday, and I haven't put it on yet. But I'm about to, and it's not a medical mask. It's honestly, it's just it's a bandana. So I'll look like a 1800s train robber or one of those guys on those old Bloods and Crips album covers.
Yeah.
um, what about you?
Did you get it because of safety concerns or peer pressure or what?
So I went to the grocery store yesterday, and I'm trying to do that as little as possible. I live in the city of Philadelphia, so there's open delis and corner stores everywhere for basic essentials. But over the last week, I've been trying to limit my own exposure. So yesterday, I drove out to the suburbs, you know, like 45 minutes away, and I went to this huge mega supermarket, and I wasn't wearing a mask, and everyone was looking at me and looking at each other with this just very um, kind of bothered attitude. You know, there were a couple of times where I would be like looking at something in the aisle, and folks were just not playing around. And I'm not used to that because that's not my own headspace. And I was like, you know what? Out of courtesy to others, when I do things like that, I should wear a mask.
So
And
it's peer pressure. I mean,
yeah, but not because of like what I'm hearing on the news. It's
but
almost out
that's
of
what I mean.
respect.
Yeah, but you feel like you're a bad actor almost because everyone else is doing it, and like, who's this guy? It's like almost like you feel like you're walking down the street sneezing without covering your mouth or something. Like,
Yeah, I mean, so I'll use this analogy. Like I don't like I hate when people spit on the sidewalk, you know, and it's something like we all have to spit, but it's something that I'm always mindful when it's me. I wait till like I'm not, you know, like no one's right in front of me or about to walk. It's the same idea. It's just it's not peer pressure. I see your point, but it's courtesy.
yeah, I had not been looking to do it anytime soon, and but yeah, for the exact same reason. Like I thought about getting one yesterday. I was at the drugstore. I don't think they had any, but I'll probably order one. And just because, yeah, you gotta conform. It's the
If you got an old
conformity.
bandana or something, although you're in LA, you probably shouldn't be doing
Yeah,
that.
it's like somebody. Yeah, Bill Mayer was saying that yesterday because he had Mary Garcetti on, and he was talking about bandanas, and you know,
Oh wow.
yeah,
But I'm not going
Irish
to do it like
references.
when I walk my dog. You're not going to see. And it's crazy because just since we spoke last week, like everyone in the city's been wearing them. I'm not going to do that, but when I walk into environments, that's when I'll put it on.
I bet you I'm gonna see you walking your dog with a mask on, like inside of a week. Jake, is that you?
Yeah, it won't be, but we'll see.
It's all right, man. um, so 6ix9ine.
Mm,
Speaking of coronavirus, 6ix9ine got out because
yeah.
of coronavirus. Like, I mean, what what's going to be more dangerous for him, coronavirus inside, or the stuff he's going to have to face on the outside?
He better be wearing a bandana, and I'm not sure it's going to be a red one either. Yeah, man, I don't know. That's what I said. I'm just like this stuff is stranger than fiction. But is it? I'm asking you because I read a few headlines this week, and everyone there was like a shadow of a doubt. Is he 100% out?
Interesting. I don't know. I saw. Yeah, he is. The New York Times reported he was out. So,
Okay.
yeah. But it's crazy, man. That guy's journey has been so insane from start to finish. Like,
Yeah.
all of it, and to get out because of this. But you think so? Bill Cosby and R. Kelly are trying to do that now too. You think they're gonna get out?
R. Kelly, no. Bill Cosby, maybe. Yeah. I
You
don't
think
know.
so?
Yeah, I mean, even like, yeah, would Suge Knight get out? Would C Murder get out? You know, like I'm thinking of other incarcerated. Man, it's wild. But on a serious note, and that's really when I saw Tekashi get out, I was thinking of like people that have loved ones that are in long-term incarceration that are stuck in there. And here is a guy who didn't do the right thing in my eyes and in a lot of people's eyes, and he gets a pass. I know he was going to come out later this year, but it's strange days indeed.
Yeah, man. It is concerning. I don't know what it's going to be like on the outside for him. But you know,
Yeah, I mean, I wonder too, like, you know, I listened to Sean Sotero and Complex's podcast, which I thought was amazing. And I say that as somebody that was not a huge fan of Tekashi's music even ahead of all of this. It really made me invested and made me cared. And I got an education of just what he did. And but at the same time, does he have the benefit now of high
what he did. What
profile?
do you mean? What do you mean?
Like really it helped me understand how Tekashi leveraged association to get recognition and then turned his back on that association and the motives at play. A lot of guys in that, organization, Nine Trey, um, we're making money on him as management, as label representation, and all of that. And at what point did Tekashi say, no, this isn't enough? And we saw some of those headlines play out. But now I look at it, and he turned on his own people for a time. A litany of guys are in there serving lengthy sentences. Sure, street retaliation makes sense, but is Tekashi so high profile that he's untouchable now?
Man, I don't think anybody's untouchable. I think it really just depends on how steep his security is. You know, 50, like people forget, but when 50 really got hot, like he was really a target. Like he didn't travel anywhere without a bulletproof vest, and like it was, he moved
Yeah.
like a president or something. But you know, things do subside over time. People kind of like, but you know, 50 stuff wasn't to this level. It wasn't so public. It wasn't something that, well, I don't know if it was something that sent dudes to prison. It might have been, you
Yeah.
know. But you know, I don't see him moving like that anymore. You know, so I suppose that when someone's life is in danger like that to that level, you can live it down. But we'll see. You know.
Yeah, I mean, for all he can absolutely make songs and upload them. I mean, he's still under contract, and I believe got a contract renegotiation that paid him handsomely. So he does have money for security, and
Well,
one can only imagine.
well, how does that work though? I mean, you build an image, an entire like persona on being a tough guy and you know fearless and like you know a killer and robbing people and stuff like that. Like, what is your image? What is your sound like after you know you've turned people in and become a
Yeah.
state's witness and all that stuff? Like, I don't even get what the story is. What's the narrative?
Yeah, and I mean, you look at it, there's been cases of like complete 180s in music before. You look at No Malice from the Clips, who kind of, you know, went from talking about drugs and stuff, in the past to becoming a Christian rapper for all intents and purposes. I don't think Tekashi will make a 180. I think he leans into it. I think sort of, he's not quite Drake's level, but he is a really good troll. So he's gonna find a way to like make a song almost like R. Kelly did for years of that pokes at this and still finds a way to go viral. And I think the only way it works is if it's good. Otherwise, it just becomes a gossip moment and move on. But
So
this is not the last. Oh, go ahead.
when you say he leans into it, do you mean like what Rick Ross did? You know, so Ross, like you know, obviously had the reputation as being a corrections officer, but he never, and he never still hasn't really admitted it. I mean, I don't think he full out denies it anymore, but he never ever like backed away from being
Right.
like the kingpin.
No,
Like he just went triple hard on it. So
what I'm saying is this. So I don't know if you saw the clip this week of O.J. Simpson on the golf course, and he was talking about the show that we discussed last week, Tiger King. And there's this whole point in the show of a woman killing her spouse, and OJ decided, unprovoked, to opine on that in a way where very clearly there's people in this world that
oof,
believe OJ did it.
yeah.
OJ knew what he was doing by talking about that, like, and he did it with a laugh and a smile and sunglasses on, and that's what I mean. I think Tekashi could make a song called like, I told or told you so, or you know what I mean. Like he will not run from it, but lean into it. He'll make it part of his marketing strategy.
Yeah, we might be saying the same thing. I mean, I'm not saying he's going to run from being a witness. I'm saying he might try and spin it like him being a witness made him tougher in some way. You know,
Oh yeah.
like you know, it's almost like you know, saying like, yeah, you know, I snitched, but like, I did it for this reason, and and yeah, yeah, I don't know. He's an interesting cat, but we'll see.
So
You know, it's also his shelf life.
yeah.
Most artists only have a shelf life of a couple years anyway, and so his shelf life could have been over no matter what, and maybe this extended, or maybe it's just going to run its natural course.
Yeah, and I mean the amount of money invested in him and the people who did it, I believe that he has enough machine around him that if the music appeases the fan base, his shelf life is not quite so short. You know what I mean? And plus, everyone in his peripheral, from Trippie Redd, on over, is going to have something to say. So this benefits a whole class of artists. Yeah.
So you know, you mentioned people behind him. So you know, a lot of people don't realize that Elliot Grange, you know, son of Lucian Grange, Universal Music Group's head, is behind not only Takashi but 6ix9ine.
Yeah.
I mean, sorry, but Trippie Redd.
Yeah.
Um, What do you think about that, given their history, and given how secret that's kind of been, or it's
Yeah, I mean,
been
they really push
discussed?
that to the back. I think it's no different. It's just, in the words of Most Def, mathematics. For years, artists on Interscope were beefing with each other. Well beyond Game and 50.
Hmm.
Um, you know, it benefits the label to have a dog and pony show. That being said, much like Game and 50, I think Tekashi and 6ix9ine really did have a disagreement. Um,
Yeah, you did the same thing I did. Tekashi and Trippie Red.
Oh yeah, Tekashi and
Yeah.
Trippie Red. Yeah, I mean, I think and I learned that from the podcast that I just mentioned. That was real stuff. But in the middle of it all is an executive, kind of fanning the flames.
Yeah.
It's odd. It's odd. So I know how important to you haircuts are. Do you have a contingency plan
Do I have a
for
strategy?
quarantine? Yeah.
Yeah. So my plan is to let it grow until I see my barber again in New York, and
Okay.
I'm assuming that could be another 2, maybe 3 months max. So I'm not going to be at Jay-Z level at that point, but it'll certainly be
Yeah.
longer than I've had it in many, many years. And we'll see. Just have fun with it. Why not, man? Everything is different now. If it
There you go.
goes much beyond that, I do have clippers, and I can take it down to like a super low Caesar.
Yeah.
So we'll see. How about you?
I haven't quite figured out the plan yet. My unfortunately, my hair grows faster in the back than it does on the top. So
You gonna have a
I
mullet?
am, I am marching my way towards being a red state, and I, yeah, I gotta figure out a plan. I asked my girlfriend this week if she felt comfortable, not a haircut, but just like a trim, and she said no. So I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'll have to do it myself. I have never cut my own hair fully. So
Never.
mm,
I mean,
no,
you have
never.
like a friend or anything you trust to do it, or?
Ah, man, I don't know. Let me ask you. I mean, my closest friends in the city, uh, a lot of them are black. Would you let a white guy cut your hair?
Nah, nah.
Am I
Nah.
wrong if I'm not sure I want to let a
I
black
mean,
guy cut my hair?
I've had it happen twice
Yeah,
in my life, right?
yeah,
But just a friend, nah,
yeah.
never.
Okay.
Nah, you're not getting any clippers near my head.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see as this podcast progresses, but I'm gonna start to look like a relief pitcher.
That's funny.
Oh.
Yeah. So, like Water for Chocolate turned 20 years old.
Mm.
First of all, that's crazy to me that album, which feels so
Yeah.
contemporary to me still, is 20 years old. But that album, man, came out at a time when I was running the precursor to Ambrosia For Heads. I started a company called NewRules.com back in 1999, and its mission was very much like AFH's. And this came out right kind of in the thick of things, and just destroyed me, man. Like it was at kind of like that peak Soulquarians time, and I really loved that sound between Erica and D'Angelo and the Roots, and hearing like just the opening Time Traveling. Just love that song. Doing It is one of my favorite common joints of all time. One of my favorite Dilla joints too. Like
Yeah.
I thought they killed that. The fact that they had the loneliness on both, fantastic. Some Village, and then also on Common's album was pretty cool because that was rare. You didn't typically hear a song on 2 different albums.
Especially,
Even the skits, like his
yeah.
grandmother and all that stuff. It was just a dope album.
That's a really good point about the loneliness being on both albums, because you see that other places. You look at like Regulate, which is on Warren's album, and Above the Rim, and or even Jay-Z, Jermaine Dupri, Money Ain't a Thing.
Mm.
And as much as Jay-Z and arguably Jermaine are artists, um, fantastic too, and like Water for Chocolate are albums. Like there was an all killer, no filler, very artistic. So to have a song that fits on both, which I believe it does, is really remarkable.
Yeah, and then you had the Primo joint. I mean, like
Oh, the
there was
Sixth Sense. Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of, and I might have actually, as a lawyer, worked. What it might have been one of my last producer agreements I did for Premiere. But yeah, man, that album just had joints, and you know the light. I mean, like
Yeah.
the obvious, like it was. It was. Would you call it a classic?
Right on the fringe there. You know, I love the album. It's might be my favorite Soulquarians hip hop album. And with one precursor, I don't include just personally, I don't include Black on Both Sides in that.
Yeah.
That could be argued, but if we're not saying that, this is I prefer like Water for Chocolate to Things Fall Apart, and I do prefer it to Fantastic. It's just a tremendous album, and truly, The Sixth Sense is in the running for one of my favorite rap songs of all times.
So, what defines a classic for you, and what if this one doesn't get there? What was lacking?
There's a few songs on the album that I still skip over.
Hmm.
And you know, you and I were talking about classic as it pertains to All Eyes on Me recently, and we said it's a flawed classic. I would not use the word flawed, like unlike Water for Chocolate, but there's still moments that album I skip over, and that might just be personal taste. The other thing is, and it's Lord knows there's artists that have multiple classic albums, but my favorite Common album, the one that I always go back to, is One Day It'll All Make Sense, the one right before this. And to me, that's Common's like most cohesive, perfect album. So as a result, like Water for Chocolate lives a little bit in its shadow, even though Sixth Sense is my favorite Common song, hands down. And
That's
yeah,
interesting because One Day It'll All Make Sense is probably my least favorite Common album. That doesn't
oh wow,
surprise me. Like we're probably both big Common fans, but like we
yeah,
go approach it from different sides of the spectrum. You know, for me, I think like Water for Chocolate would. Yeah, so I hear you on the not having skippable songs is part of the criteria for a classic. That's a big one for me, which is why I don't think that Eminem has any classic albums.
hmm. Yeah,
But I don't know the joints that are on like Water for Chocolate that are good are so great to me that they outweigh any tracks that I might not feel as much. And while there are certain tracks that I would skip pretty regularly on like Water for Chocolate, I don't think there's any song that I would say it's just flat out whack.
true.
So so you know it kind of outweighs it for me, and I probably would put it in that classic status. That being said, like I don't think it's his most cohesive album, and you know, ironically, for me, his most cohesive album, you know, I wouldn't say is better than like Water for Chocolate, even though it's more cohesive, and that's
Yeah,
B.
B, which is a
Yeah,
shorter album too.
it's a shorter album, it's tighter, and I think that's for me that's a common theme in a lot of classics, and I
Yeah,
don't think it's a coincidence. I think that you know, shorter does mean the person took the time to kind of cull it and like, you know, just leave no filler. You know, Drake says that about um what's the album with Pound Cake on it? You know, the clouds,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um,
uh
damn, we were
some
just talking about it.
yeah, yeah. But that album, you know, I think that that is his probably best album.
Yeah,
Um, you know, and B is only like 45 minutes or something like that, right? It's
yeah. I think
pretty
it's even
tight.
less than 40. It's like Illmatic. It's a really short album. You know, I thought of this last summer when you know all the lists were trending, and Common is absolutely not on my top 25, but on my top 10.
Huh.
And I think Common is robbed all the time. I think, and I don't know for sure why, but Common is an incredible artist, and if you were to play for somebody what makes Common great, this might this yeah this would be the album. Because One Day It All Makes Sense is when I personally really bonded with Common, and I think you always hold on to those nostalgic points. And I agree with you. I think B is a really tight, phenomenal album, and it was comeback album isn't fair, but it was Common in a new sound with Kanye, who was just white hot at the time. But yeah, One Day is great, and I listen to it. You know, apart from Erica, it's the Soulquarian stuff that I listen to the most. You know, that and The Roots Come Alive. the line.
Yeah, and Common and Dilla just had something magic, man. They had something magic.
They really did. They really did. And yeah, they I interviewed Common a few times over the years, but the first time I spoke to him, if I'm not mistaken, it was when he was in LA living with Dilla, and no one knew that Dilla was sick at the time. And this was a phone interview in late 2005. And I remember Common called me from LA and all of that, and we talked about Dilla. And 3 months later, 2 months later, Dilla passed, and they were roommates at the end of Dilla's life, and
Yeah,
they had a really special bond.
yeah, it's really crazy. And speaking of passing away, rest in peace, Bill Withers. I know that
Mm.
hit a lot of people hard. Were you a big fan? Did you have favorite songs of his?
Yeah, I'm a huge Bill Withers fan. I think like a lot of people, I grew up with him, and I grew up with him being 36, on the radio, and my mom had tapes, but I in my early 20s, a friend of mine who actually wrote for Ambrosia, my friend Luke gave me Just As I Am, Bill's, first solo album. And that is still one of my favorite albums. Bill Withers, up until this week, was probably my favorite living voice. Just like voice. Like if you could have any voice on record, yeah, I mean, I love, there's so many I love, especially in the soul and R&B genre, but Bill Withers' voice. So I've been telling people throughout the week, play his live album. It came out in 72. Bill stopped touring as much. He became a family man, and just the command that he has over the audience, it's live at Carnegie Hall, is insane. And several times since whatever it was, Thursday, I've played the album and just gotten chills. I've been really, really moved.
You said 1972?
Yeah, it came out in 73, but it's where he plays I Can't Write Left-Handed, which is the Roots and John Legend covered on the Wake Up album, which won a Grammy. And that song is such a good protest record. And protest might not even be the right word, but he says it in the concert. They like come in and he says the Vietnam War is now over when the album's coming out, but he plays this song. And that song in particular just makes, every hair on my arm stand up. And then he ends the album playing Harlem, which is another one of my favorite Bill Withers songs. And he cuts into Cold Baloney, which he wrote, the Isley Brothers covered, but he does this interplay with the crowd. And if you listen, in that single like 13-minute song, you'll hear so many samples. Like I realized that producers sampled Bill Withers' interplay with the crowd, and that doesn't surprise me either. You think about it, like
That's crazy. Yeah.
No Diggity, Grandma's Hands is literally like Bill, kind of like moaning and strumming the guitar and using the guitar as percussion. Like he was just so musical all over.
Yeah. Yeah. Really, really, really tough. He touched a lot of people though. Lean on Me is certainly a song that, has helped a lot of people during like times of crisis. It's odd, just even like just how bizarre the world has become. Like, Lean on Me, just the notion of that being a supportive song now, right?
Yeah.
When we're not supposed to touch each other, it's weird,
Yeah.
It's wild times. But yes,
You were a big fan, right?
I am. He is kind of like Stevie Wonder for me, where I'm a deceptive fan. I don't actively go out and seek, Stevie Wonder music or Bill Withers music, but when I sit down and listen to all the songs, in a compilation or something, I'm like, whoa, like I really like Bill Withers. He's not like
Yeah.
a James Brown or a Prince or someone like that, where I proactively have it in heavy rotation. But when it's put in front of me and presented as a body of work, I realize just how much I did, like and respect his work.
Absolutely. I encourage you to play the live album. He did an interview that I've been suggesting to people too at the end of his life. A few years ago with a podcast called Death, Sex, and Money that I really like out of WNYC. And Bill Withers talks about what it means to be a man. And it's like a 30-minute interview. And Bill Withers has so much of that, like, I call it like grandparent wisdom. And he was from, Beckley, West Virginia, which isn't terribly far from where I grew up in Pittsburgh. And Bill Withers was, he epitomizes cool to me and that just seasoned wisdom. I know that's redundant. But.
Yeah. So I want to end on Public Enemy. Because they had a lot of things. It's funny when we released our news that we were going to stop working on the site. A lot of people drew parallels to that and Public Enemy, and because I think we announced that on the same day that Chuck said
Certainly
that,
within 24 hours.
yeah, that Flavor Flav was fired from the group after Flav issued a cease and desist letter against Bernie Sanders using Public Enemy's music in his rallies or in a rally in LA. So now the news is on April 1st, Chuck D said that it all had been an April Fool's joke extended from March, and that he couldn't fire Flav because Flav was a partner, and they released new music on the same day. So what do you think of all of it? You think that it was a hoax? If so, do you think it was super corny to do it that way? If not, why do you think that they would try and mask it as a hoax? Like, what's your thought on it?
I don't believe the April Fool's Day narrative.
Don't believe the hype?
I don't believe the hype. This is the equivalent to me of my Twitter was hacked, which we saw a lot a decade ago. Gucci Man, it happened to him when he and Waka Flocka were beefing. He was like, "Oh, my Twitter was hacked." I remember when Mobb Deep, when Prodigy and Havoc went at it around 2011 or 2012. They used that same thing. We've just seen it. You've seen it time and time again. I'm not buying it, and I think that it's common for groups to have ugly public disputes with the technology we have. We've also seen it with like Naughty by Nature. We saw it with the Dog Pound, on and on and on. I have the utmost respect for Public Enemy. When I talk about favorite voices, Chuck D is one of my favorite rap voices of all time and still uses it and projects it. But I don't think, I'm not buying it. I'm not. I
Yeah,
think that,
I
yeah.
agree with you too, but I don't. But that's the thing that I have a hard time understanding. Right there, you said it. Like there are tons of groups that have had very, very public disputes, and this
Yes.
isn't even their first test up. I mean, they've had over the years,
Yeah.
with Flavor substance abuse and like Professor Griffin, like
Yep.
there's been all sorts of controversy within the group. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you see like EPMD, they've had their differences.
Sure.
Uh, you know, Mobb Deep, like there've been a ton of people who've had these kind of Tribe Called Quest. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. If you're a group and you have 10 plus years of history, it comes with the territory. So I don't understand why they would try and cover it up if that were the case.
Yeah, I mean, Chuck's reasoning, I mean, to paraphrase, was that he's been putting out albums. People haven't been caring. This incident in March got more attention than any music that they've done recently. So is his way of kind of like jerking the chain back on the media and the fans. And I agree on the sentiment. Public Enemy put out an album a few years ago. It did really well on Ambrosia for Heads. You know, what was it called? Nothing to Do in the Desert except die. Like it was cool. I played it a lot, and then it went off of the streaming platforms. I want to see these groups get their due, but this isn't the way to go about it. And yeah, I'm just disappointed. I totally expected that they would get back together, but honestly, just get back together like you have in the past. Release a new song, let everybody know the group's reunited. I don't know. I'm just not drinking. I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, I mean, maybe in an ironic way, the April Fool's joke was the announcement. Like that was
Yeah.
the April Fool's joke. That it was fake. It really was fake. It wasn't fake.
Yeah, and I can shoot Chuck at least some bail on this. I mean, he announced when Rage Against the Machine agreed to do Coachella, Chuck D immediately released a statement that Prophets of Rage was on hiatus. So he wants to put out music. So you go back to PE. And if you look at that timeline, right after that statement was the Bernie Sanders rally and all of that stuff. But yeah, and on everything else, I listened to the song that they put out this week and I just wasn't feeling it. But
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
just me.
yeah. Um, D Nice still going strong. I watched last night. It's like 60, 70,000 people 1.8
Did
million. You know, there's tons of great stuff. Erykah Badu's doing a second concert. Actually, it'll be done by the time this airs. Teddy Riley and LA and Babyface are gonna have a beat battle.
they rescheduled that though?
They
Yeah.
rescheduled that, but yeah, it's gonna come. Toby and Midway is doing live sessions. Like, I don't know, man. It's a great time to be a music fan right now amidst all this craziness.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if this does go on 2, 3, 4 months, I hope that when people push live on whatever social they're using, have something dope. Um, I've gotten to the point over the last few weeks of, because you get, I don't know about you, but I get the notification at the top of my screen. So I've done it by accident. I've clicked in. And when you just see somebody that you look up to sitting on their couch smoking a joint, I'm not feeling that when there is so much. Like D Nice did an amazing Bill Withers tribute, as did Questlove the night that he passed. Yeah, I mean, treat it like you would in anything else. Earn that spot, use your airtime wisely, and I'm gonna keep tuning in.
Yeah, cool, man. All right, well, until
What's
the next time. What's up?
well, wait, real quick. Let me end you here.
Yeah.
What's your song of the week, man?
Oh yeah. You know, it's probably, I'd say YNSP by Vic Mensa. You know, Internet Tape was an album that just destroyed me when it first came out. You know, I remember I texted his manager as the first time I heard Orange Soda, and I said, we got to get in business. I want to get on the bandwagon before it gets too crowded. You know, I just think that Vic is brilliant. You know, he and I developed a real kinship over the years. He played Down on My Luck for me in my office
Wow.
when I was at BET 18 months before it dropped,
Oh wow.
And he was one of the first people I interviewed back in the day for AFH. I put him on music in our campaign Music Matters, saw some of his earliest shows. I just missed him in Kids These Days. So I'm a massive, massive Vic Mensa fan. And that album I've been banging pretty heavily. And YNSP I had not heard in a while, and that just like hit me. It was great. So how
Yeah.
about you?
I got to see Kids These Days at a Roots picnic right before the group ended, and great energy. It was in the middle of the rain. They were playing in a tent. Um, so the phrase that I keep having over in my head through the week is "We just trying to stay alive," the Wyclef song. But in all actuality, that's not a record I've played. Evidence released a new song this week called "The Unlearning," which is his first vocal song, solo song, since Whether or Not. And I just keep playing it. It's just very stream of consciousness. We talk about Drake with Quarantine. This feels a little bit like quarantine music. Like I'm just going to turn this mic on and vent. Totally different sound. He even says like this is different than the series of albums I've been doing since 2007. But yeah, that was probably the song I played most this week. And I really, apart from Bill Withers, it just gets me in my headspace right now.
Yeah, man, I really love that Evidence track too. I'm just a massive fan of his.
Yeah.
He's another one where like when I start to think of like who are my favorite artists, he wouldn't come immediately to mind. But once I start put him in consideration, it's clear to me that he's one of my favorite rappers of the last decade for sure.
Yeah, and you and I made a point, about Royce, like artists that have gotten better with time, and Evidence most definitely has. And I love Dilated Peoples. I bought the platform the week it came out, but Evidence on his own is making the best music of his career, and he's somebody who I just trust. The Unlearning was not like my typical beat choice. It's not a tight, chorus or anything like that, but it hit me where I'm at, and I am so excited of more Evidence music to come.
Yeah, it feels like Evidence for sure. Like it doesn't, you wouldn't say, "Huh, I'm surprised," but it's different. It's different than stuff he's releasing in a while.
Mm-hmm.
Who
Yeah.
do you know? Do you know who produced it?
Yeah, a guy out of Virginia named Gray Matter, and he shouts him out in the track. And I made sure that we followed Gray Matter on AFH because whenever like Ev was early on Mac Kami, he was early on Crime Apple. Ev low key is like one of those guys that puts artists on his albums and on his projects like 2 or 3 years before everyone else catches up.
Yeah, you said this is not going to be part of the Weather series. That trilogy is over.
Yeah, Ev had been saying that. And then he says it in like the verse too, almost like Jay with the you want my old shit, buy my old albums, but in a more like, yo, I'm stepping beyond that. And yo, that series lasted 11 years from 2007 to 2018. Yo, I'm ready to see where Ev's gonna go now, because if it's any indication of this song or the last album, he's just in an incredible space.
Yeah, for sure. Word. All right, my man. So, I think soon we should start inviting some other people to the conversation, to the party. Speaking of party, one last thing. So, I'm seeing that a lot of things are going viral in conjunction with the virus. So, Jackbox, Tiger King, now the app House Party. I'm not sure if you're on that. It's interesting. What do you make of that? A D Nice, one could argue that
Yeah,
like that's a viral sensation. Why
these
why do you think there's
battles.
all this stuff that's going viral to coincide with the virus?
I think everyone's figuring out their new normal, and we are all creatures of habit and succumb to peer pressure. So yeah, I mean, different things are rising to the top, and over the last couple weeks, you and I've talked about it with Derek, with D Nice. I Yeah, it's cool to see, and I am new to Jackbox. I played right before the quarantine started, but I thought that was just a great game. If anyone, I've been going heavy on Words with Friends on my phone. If anybody wants that smoke, leave your name in the comments section. I'll
Okay,
find it.
all right. I didn't know that. Okay,
Yeah,
I'm about to get you on some words
yeah,
friends right now.
yeah. We're all going crazy. Yeah,
Word. All right, man.
I take
That's
it.
awesome. Later.